There is a moment most people never talk about, the moment when you look in the mirror and realize you no longer recognize the person looking back at you. Not because something dramatic happened, not because life fell apart in one single blow, but because somewhere along the way, quietly and without warning, you stopped believing you were capable. And the terrifying part is this: nobody took your confidence from you. You gave it away, one small defeat at a time. But here's what changes everything, and what you will discover before this video ends the same way you lost it, piece by piece, and the exact same way you are going to rebuild it. Most people believe confidence is something you either have or you don't. They watch someone walk into a room and command attention and they think, that person was born that way. That story is comfortable. It lets you off the hook, but it is also completely false. And the science, the psychology, and the real stories of people who rebuild themselves from nothing to prove it. Confidence is not a personality trait. It is a skill. And like every skill, it is built through repetition, not revelation. So what is the real problem? Not failure itself. The real problem is the story you tell yourself after failure. Every time you attempted something and it didn't work, your brain feels it under evidence. Evidence that you're not enough. Evidence that you shouldn't try. Evidence that the risk is not worth it. And now, without realizing it, you have built an entire courtroom inside your head. And you're always the defendant. Here's where it gets interesting. The brain doesn't distinguish between a big win and a small one at the neurochemical level. A win is a win. Dopamine floods your system whether you climbed Everest or simply sent the email you had been avoiding for 3 weeks. Which means the strategy that reveals confidence is not about doing something massive. It is about doing something real, something completed, something yours. And that is exactly where the micro-victory strategy begins. Think about the last time you actually finished something. It didn't have to be important. Maybe you cleaned one corner of a room you had been ignoring. Maybe you woke up when your alarm went off instead of hitting snooze. Maybe you had a hard conversation you kept postponing. In that moment, did you feel it? That quiet, almost invisible sensation of completion? That wasn't small. That was your nervous system beginning to rewrite the story. That was the first brick. The micro-victory strategy works because it attacks the real enemy, not laziness, not weakness, not fear, but learned helplessness, a concept studied by psychologist Martin Seligman, who discovered that when living beings are exposed to repeated situations where their actions have no effect, they eventually stop trying, even when the situation changes and escape becomes possible. In other words, your brain learned to be stuck. And it will stay stuck until you give it new evidence. Evidence that your actions produce results. That is precisely what a micro-victory delivers. But here is the part most self-help content gets wrong. And this distinction is what will determine whether this strategy actually works for you or becomes just another thing you tried once and abandoned. A micro-victory is not a to-do list item. It is not a habit tracker. It is something specific, personal, and slightly uncomfortable. It must live at the edge of what feels manageable, because the edge is where growth happens. Too easy, and your brain categorizes it as irrelevant. Too hard, and you trigger the same avoidance pattern you are trying to escape. The formula is deceptively simple. Choose one thing today that you have been avoiding, that you believe you can finish in under 30 minutes, and finish it completely. Not halfway, not good enough, all the way. Then write it down, not in a productivity app, not in a spreadsheet, in a physical notebook with your hand, because the physical act of writing activates memory and emotional encoding in a way that typing doesn't. You are not tracking progress, you are building a case for your own defense. You are replacing old evidence with new evidence, one entry at a time. Now, here's what happens inside you that nobody warns you about. And this is crucial, because if you miss this, you will mistake it for failure when it is actually a sign that the strategy is working. Around day 3 or 4, you will feel resistance, not just reluctance, active, almost aggressive resistance. Your mind will tell you the task is pointless. It will remind you of every time something similar didn't work. It will make the 30-minute commitment feel like climbing a mountain. That resistance is not a stop sign. It is the old story fighting back. And the only way through it is to do the thing anyway, badly if necessary, but completely. Confidence, at its core, it's not the absence of fear. It is the accumulated memory of having acted in spite of it. Every time you complete a micro-victory under resistance, you are not just checking something off a list. You are retraining your nervous system to associate action with safety instead of action with threat. You are rebuilding the natural architecture of a person who trusts themselves. There is a woman who lost her business, her marriage, and her sense of identity within 18 months. She didn't start over with a grand vision. She started by making her bed every morning, then cooking one real meal per week, then calling one person she had been avoiding. 3 months later, she launched a small consulting project. 6 months after that, her income had surpassed what she had made before everything collapsed. She didn't rebuild her life by doing something extraordinary. She rebuilt it by doing something ordinary, repeatedly, until ordinary became the foundation for extraordinary. You're at an inflection point right now, not because you watched a video, but because something in you already knew this before you press play. The part of you that is tired of waiting for the right moment, the right conditions, the right version of yourself to show up. That part already knows the waiting is the wound. The healing doesn't begin where everything is perfect. It begins when you move, even imperfectly, even scared, even unsure. So here's what you do tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. Open a notebook, write today's date, and write one thing, just one, that you have been putting off, something real, something with an ending. Then do it. Finish it. Write it down as done. That is your first micro victory. It will feel small. That is exactly how it is supposed to feel, because small is how everything that ever became large actually started. You didn't lose your confidence in one catastrophic moment, and you will not get it back in one either. But here's what I promised you at the beginning. The loop I left often, the thing that changes everything, confidence, is not something you find. It is something you remember. And every micro victory is a memory, stack enough of them. And one day you will look in that mirror again, and this time you will recognize exactly who is looking back at you. Start tonight, one thing all the way through.